Welcome to WCAT. I'm Kiki Latimer, and I'm your host for the Catholic Bookworm, where we read to learn, but we share with love in order to understand. And I'm very happy to have with me today Rebecca Wildsmith. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Kiki, and thank you so much for inviting me to talk about my dad's book and his
Yeah, we're
artwork.
talking. I love this book. I love Christmas books to begin with, but let me just hold this up here. The Road to Bethlehem. It's got really sweet illustrations that we're going to talk about.
I've got my copy too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So Rebecca's all the way over in France. It's afternoon there. It's morning here in New England in Rhode Island. And so we're looking forward to chatting about your dad's book. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I think it's beautiful too.
Do you want to start us off with a prayer?
Yeah, sure. Let's do a Hail Mary then. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the end of our death. Amen.
Thank you. Well, that's a good prayer for a Bethlehem story.
Yeah, well, it started with Mary.
It did. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself for people who...
Sure. Well, I'm my father's second daughter. My parents had 4 children. And as a child, I was very artistic and not very academic. So I had the perfect teacher who was my father because he worked at home. At the time I was born in England, my parents and all the children were born in England. And so he worked in a studio in just off the house. He had a studio built in the garden where he would work. So I would spend a lot of time sitting at the end of his table. And he always used to make me laugh because he'd sort of say, right, Rebecca, you do know, no talking when I'm painting because I have to really concentrate. If you've got questions, you can ask those later. And of course, there always were questions from me. And so he sort of mentored me in the art world without me really realizing it at the time. It was only when I was older that I realized this. I've just got so many beautiful memories of just sitting watching my father create these extraordinary illustrations because he was from a very young age a very reputed children's illustrator, and as his life went on, some people even said he was the best children's illustrator, but most of the time he was one of the best children's illustrators. And a lot of that was due to his exuberant use of colour in paint. Because my father had in fact studied at one of London's biggest, it is in London in England, biggest, most reputed art schools called the Slade School of Art, where he studied painting. And he was there for 3 years. This was the end of the 40s, going into the beginning of the 50s. And obviously when he graduated, it was like, right, well, I've got to start earning a living. And he was thinking, oh my God, by this time he'd married my mum. They were already talking about having children. And so one day he worked out that there were hundreds and hundreds of books that were published every year. And at the time, full colour printing was not widely available in a lot of books because it was very expensive. So all the different colours had to be done in different layers. So they printed first, I'm not sure quite the order, black, yellow, magenta, cyan, blue, to get all the colours. And so he started off doing book covers and a lot of black and white Indian ink pen, the old-fashioned way, putting the pen in the bottle of ink. And he was, in fact, a very, very good draftsman. I mean, when I look at his black and whites from the 50s and going into the early 60s, some of them are quite extraordinary. And he was, because of it, he did a lot of research as well into what he was doing, but he just had that knack, with the ink pen in, no mistakes. He just drew, the horseman with a battle scene behind or whatever the illustration involved. And so it was really fascinating to watch him drawing like this and then painting. And then it was sort of out of by chance that he met a new editor at what is England's oldest publishers called Oxford University Press.
Oh, yeah.
And he took a portfolio with him, and she was called Mabel George. And Mabel just saw straight away, oh my goodness, who's this? So she first got him to do a book called The Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Oh.
That had about 16 colour illustrations in the cover. And he came out and he had some very good reviews, but he also had one abominable one, which he remembered by heart his whole life. He didn't remember the good ones, he remembered the bad one. And he was panicking, going, this exuberant of colours coming out of this page, he's never seen anything like this sort of thing. And he goes back to his mate, to Mabel, and he says, I'm done for. And Mabel says, no, you're not. That's exactly what I wanted. It's your use of colour, and you've done it. So then she commissioned him to do his first book, which was an ABC. And that was in 1962. And he won the Kate Greenaway Medal, which I believe is the English equivalent of, I think it's the Caldecott Medal in America.
Okay.
Children's books.
Yeah.
And he just took off. And it was miraculous also because Mabel George, her father, worked in Austria and he was a printer. And at that time, they'd developed this new printing system where you didn't have to do all these layers. It was just the painting. And I don't know how it worked, but I wasn't born at that time yet. No, I was just born. And and his career just took off. And he ended up doing 82 books, of which this Road to Bethlehem that we're going to talk about today was his last book that he illustrated in 2003.
82 books. That's amazing.
Yeah, 82 books, of which I ended up doing about 7 books with him as well, when I was much later in my life, because I studied in London. I did graphic design at a school called the Camberwell School of Art and Crafts. And it was when I'd moved back to near my parents many years later that my dad sort of said to me, well, look, Rebecca, I've got this commission from this Japanese company designing these posters for astrological signs, and I'd really like some graphic borders, because my dad was, as you can see from the book, very painterly, whereas I was more graphic. So he sort of said, would you like to work with me a bit on these? And I went, flattered, yes, please, Dad, why not? You know, I'm always up for something new. So that was how we sort of started working a bit together. We also worked on some costumes and sets for a production called The Velveteen Rabbit.
Oh, the Velvet.
It was done by the Oberlin Dance Company in San Francisco. So I was very lucky. I travelled out with him.
Oh, how wonderful that must have been.
Katie Nelson, who was in charge of the whole thing. And then I did other bits and pieces with some more Japanese stuff with him. And then even when I was little, I sometimes actually, when his deadline was looming and there was something not too complicated to paint, he'd sort of say, Rebecca, you know, I'm running a bit tight here. Do you think you could help me paint in the leaves of this paper or of this picture? So I did all little things like that with him as well, which was quite amusing, really. But I was quite flattered.
That's a wonderful relationship
you know,
had.
Because he was so brilliant at what he did.
Yeah, so it sounds like a beautiful relationship between the two of you.
Yeah, lovely relationship. My dad was a very humble man, and he was. Well, I'm going to give you this quote. This is because what his aim was with children was art is food for the soul. A picture represents a child's very first encounter with art. So I felt that this was a way I could make a contribution to the world. A drop in the ocean, maybe, but this work offered a chance to communicate to children the importance of such things as kindness, compassion, friendship, and beauty. Which sort of sums him up in a sort of a nutshell a bit. And he was so passionate about, you know, getting children to fulfill themselves at a young age through art, because then they don't, you know, sort of criticize the pictures. They just, you know, absorb them. And it's always good, I think, and it would be a good thing for parents who are listening if they acquire this Road to Bethlehem, that because there's a twist to it. So it's based on the Nativity story, but there's a twist to it. So it's quite a good idea, I always think, to let children look at the pictures and sort of say to them, and what can you see there? Mm-hmm. And what do you think's hidden there? You know, behind a flower or something.
Well, it's
to get them to use their artistic, because the kids, you know, when they're little, they're drawing all the time. And I
Right.
always find it weird. Kids always draw the people with the head, their arms coming out of their head, because they're so low down, and that's what it looks like. It looks like, the adults have their arms coming out of their head. And so, and then, in nursery school, we're pushing all this art on children and everything. And then when you start primary school,
I just love the bear.
yeah, there you go. Then a lot of the art, he just gets taken out of the school curriculum, which I think is a shame.
Yeah.
So I'm always into, and I've taught children art and artistic lessons when I lived in Dublin. So I think it's really important, and I think this is the fact that there's this twist with the storyline is very, very appropriate.
Well, it made me feel like St.
Children.
Francis had written it. You've got, it's from the point of view of the, first of all, that it starts out with Mary's cat and dog, which I just loved.
Well, yeah.
It's
Well,
a
in fact, I think it starts with the title page, because everybody loves angels, and you've got angels, rolling huge snowballs and having a snowball fight, and there's some beautiful bird flying between a few of the angels.
Mhm.
And then, yes, of course, the story starts actually with, I think, a beautiful illustration. My dad was very influenced by early Renaissance painters like Piero della Francesca, Giotto, and all those people. And he travelled after we'd moved to France in 1971. He was delighted because he could go to Italy. He could get there in an hour, over the border, not even. And if you look at this illustration, it's so simple, but it's the enunciation. But what I love, and this is where his humour and his vivid imagination always comes in, is that on her lap, she's holding this very cheeky looking, happy tabby cat. Then you've got this lovely sort of hound of a dog on the floor at her feet. And then you can see two bowls there, one for water for the animals and another one with the food. And so she's looking over her shoulder at the Archangel Gabriel, who's on his knees, and he's holding a beautiful wreath of stem of lilies, which signify purity. And it's more the tiling on the floor that brings in that sort of Renaissance a bit
Absolutely.
aside to it. And then, as you just said, Kiki, it starts off with Mary and Joseph. Obviously, it's time for them to hit Bethlehem for the census, and Mary's handing over the cat and the dog
Yes.
to her neighbours, sort of saying, could you please look after them while we're away? And then the twist kicks in on the next page, because
They don't like that idea.
is the cat and the dog missed Mary very much, so they ran away to try to find her. And so that's where the story really starts, because then they start meeting all these characters on the way, these other animals.
And I loved it because these animals that they meet along the way are all in some are being naughty.
Yeah, they're all in a predicament. And that was his way of saying, well, it's like with your friends, you help your friends. Always know who your friends are, because if you're in trouble, they'll always be there to help you.
That's
Whereas
right.
your acquaintances,
They're gone.
they're gone, sort of thing. But this one I particularly like because it's just so full of, flowers, insects, animals, the dilemma of Mr. Goat getting stuck in the cart.
Yeah.
And
the goat is stealing carrots, which I loved.
yeah.
So
And you've got frogs there, you've got butterflies, you've got several frogs, birdies, insects, obviously the cat and the dog, and
so you have these imperfect characters making their way to Bethlehem, which is just really delightful.
Yeah. And then, of course, it's something I don't want to go through the complete book, because I always think that it's, because there's a twist to it, it's nice that there's an element of surprise a bit for the readers, the kids and the parents reading to them. But it's just like a really charming, simple, it's not, it's just down to earth, it's, down to the basics sort of thing, but with a huge amount of detail in his paintings.
Now,
a lot of textures in there too. He was very, very good at doing textures.
Mm.
He
So
used to,
did he draw it out first, or did he just have it in his head what he wanted to do?
in general, he had it in his head. That was another thing I really loved watching him because, well, in fact, I'll just go back a sec because at the back of the book, we've actually, after my father passed away, when we were cleaning out his studio, we found these sketches, the 6, 7, that are at the back of
Ah,
the book,
yeah.
of probably his preliminary ideas, and then they're not the exact images that are in the book.
Mm.
But Sophia Institute Press decided, because we found them and we said, look, we found these. Can you do anything with them? And they said, oh yeah, we'll do something with them. We're not quite sure yet. And I think they've presented them in a lovely way. But
Yes,
he
it
he
did.
he just he would spend hours sort of in looking into space, and you'd just sort of say, oh, what's going on in that head now? And he was very spontaneous in his approach and his techniques.
And
He
very
was just
playful.
such a natural at it, you know.
Very playful with his
Yeah,
ideas.
yes.
Mm.
So yeah, he didn't do sketches all the time. He literally just got the paper out. He always worked on really beautiful handmade paper, so he could, which has often got really nice textures, which helps because he basically used gouache paint, which is a water-based paint.
So
And
obviously, Christianity was really important to your father. Did he work
um,
primarily on religious books, or
no, no.
he,
Most of his books, because I should say here maybe that the Sophia Institute, because you mentioned St. Francis a few minutes ago, the Soviet Press are in the middle of nearly ready to send the next book to print of my dad's, which was about St. Francis.
oh,
And my dad had a huge thing about St. Francis. I did too when I got confirmed. I was like, got to pick a name. And I was always into animals, especially insects and things. And I just thought, I know it's going to be Francis because obviously the very famous story of him and the birds. And my father had a thing about him too. And I think because he was living near Italy, he'd go on trips just to go to look at museums and frescoes in churches, cathedrals, and he went to Assisi, where St. Francis was born. And this is, as I just said, the next book, because you mentioned it. That's the next book they'll be bringing out, which I haven't got a specific date, but I just know it'll be early 2026.
so these are being republished? They were
Yeah,
published
yeah.
earlier.
They're all being republished. My brother, who's very good on Photoshop, he's sort of remastered all the illustrations that we have to get the colors and the printing really good.
And Sophia's going to publish 6 of them, correct?
Yeah,
6?
there'll be 6, including the Road to Bethlehem.
It's wonderful.
And then I think a lot of the consequential 4 ones. There's one on Joseph from the Old Testament, Jacob's son, coat of many colors. Then it should be Mary. No, sorry, Moses. Then there's one on Mary and one on Jesus. And I think he got into those books later on in life because he'd done so many children's books, and he always liked ballet and theatre and things like that. And he found that those stories, they're quite theatrical in a way, especially when you see the books which will be coming out. He just It was a way, I think, for him of doing something that children could look at, but that wasn't necessarily just children's books. So he got into the sort of religious themes. But I wouldn't say he wasn't an avid believer. Not he was a believer, but he was very, if you want to be Catholic, be Catholic. If you're a Jew, be Jewish. If you're Islamist, you're Islam. Each to their own. And I respect, we're all human beings. We're all different. He had that sort of approach towards those books as well. I know at one point we found some sketches. He was even thinking of doing a book on Buddhism, but he became ill later on in his life, and he couldn't do any more books. But he was even going to do one on Buddhism. So
For
quite.
children, a children's book.
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
And then, when he was in the 80s, when we'd all left, because he'd been a painter at the Slade School of Art, he thought, "Oh, I've got to get, into do it. I'd love to do some more painting. And obviously, because we'd left, there was now room in the house, so he took over my big sister's bedroom, and there he did like 2 meter by 2 meter paintings,
Oh.
very textured, very using bits of wood and glue and putting sand and little stones in glue and to get a brilliant, really good background. He'd painted most of those in acrylic. He'd let the paint sort of put it on really thickly, and then he'd take a knife or whatever he had at hand, a palette knife or something, and he'd sort of gouge bits out of that nearly dry paint to get so that if you were looking at it from the side, not dead on, it would all be up and down. It wouldn't be a flat surface. And he really loved doing it because he hadn't really done painting for 30, 40 years or something.
And what were these paintings of?
A lot of them are abstract. There are a couple. My parents, when they moved to France, they lived in a beautiful village on the top of the hill. So he did quite a few of just this hill with a sort of abstracty, quite simple lines and shapes to represent all the houses. And there was a little castle on the top too. But they were like minor parts in this huge hill that was just like full of colour and texture and divided up into sort of abstract shapes and things.
Sounds like you should find a way to incorporate that into a 7th children's book, It sounds very interesting.
Yeah. He did a lot of different things as well. He worked on it was a disastrous film. It was called The Bluebird of Happiness, a story by Maurice Maeterlinck. And George Cukor was the director, and Jane Fonda was in it, Cicely Tyson, Elizabeth Taylor. Can't remember quite how many more. This was in the 70s.
Oh.
And he did the sets and the costumes. But unfortunately, excuse me, when he was doing them, that one of them, they'd filmed a lot of it, and one of the main actors became really ill, and he had to get shipped back to England.
Yeah.
And so they then had to reshoot. And by then, they'd demolished the sets to build new ones. And so then they had to build with literally no budget. It was a terrible. So in the end, my father just thought, right, okay, it's like that. It's like that. I'm going to make a book of the story instead, so that people can see the work that I put in. Which, if it had, if this actor hadn't have got ill, it would have been a much better film on a visual side, anyway.
What was your mother like in all of this?
My mum, she was very supportive of him. She would always. She'd sort of do a bit of administration for him because my father hated that, loathed it. But she was always behind him, and when they went to Italy, my mother would often go too. She was an avid traveller. She would have made a very good Sherlock Holmes, my mum. She was a bit of a witch. She always knew what we were doing before we'd done things as kids, And no, my mum was an excellent cook, really good cook. So my father got very well fed. Well, we all did.
Because I was thinking it's not always easy to live with an artist.
No, I know there were times when it was like, just leave him alone, don't go up there, leave him in his studio. But no, she was quite artistic. She used to do a lot of sewing. She'd make all our clothes when we were little. She then later got into tapestries, so she did some of my father's illustrations. She'd sort of do her own version of his picture.
Oh,
with all
interesting.
different colours and stuff, made them into cushions. And
Oh, fascinating.
yeah, everybody in the family, and my brother and sisters, we've all got an arty side. Not necessarily in painting, but my elder sister, she's a brilliant cook. She worked on set designs, making clothes, painting effects in houses.
Beautiful. I'm thinking of John Paul II's letter to artists. Have you read that?
No.
It's beautiful. And just talking about the importance of beauty and the service that the artist does, for the world. If you haven't read that, it's short and sweet and available on the internet. John Paul II's letter to artists. You will love it.
Letter to, all right, I'll
And
make a
I
note
thought
of it.
about when you mentioned, thought about that when you
Yeah,
said how it was your father felt it was important for children to see beauty.
very much so.
Yeah, and beauty
Very much
really is
so.
our first connection to God,
Yeah,
really. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Well, if you just look at this world, I mean, the natural
the
world,
natural
you
world.
know, it's stunning, and I'm always appalled at what mankind can do. Is quite.
We can mess it
I
up.
don't really want to talk about all that though now. Prefer
Yeah.
to remain on happy things and beautiful things.
Yeah, I'm always aware of the
Yes.
importance of beauty. I mean, I've got my
Mm.
angel behind me here, if you can see her.
Ah,
But
yeah, yeah, and I
to
can see
me,
you've
it's
got
important
plants and.
to just be connected to nature, be connected to
Mm,
art. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we always feel so much better when we're out walking in the woods, for example,
Hmm. Yeah.
than walking
Go to
down, the road to down to the shop or something.
the woods, the seashore, the desert.
Yeah,
We're always
nature.
looking for natural beauty. Yeah.
Well, that's where we came from, so that's
Yeah.
why we feel good there.
Yeah.
That's why we're often when kids were little, when they were being naughty, that the parents would go right out into the garden, get out, go out and play in the garden, let your energy out and enjoy playing outside.
So you said your whole family has been artistic in different
Mm,
ways. Yeah.
yeah, my
Yeah.
sister was my little sister, who unfortunately died about a month after my father. She was very arty. She did a lot of writing. She had a boyfriend who was a musician, but a bit of a sort of rock musician. So she started. His group was called Pig, believe it or not, and so she formed a band that was called Sow. And she couldn't really sing, but she was very linguistic. She spoke about 5 different languages, and she'd write songs in different languages, and he'd do the music, and it was more like recounting the story rather than singing it. So she did quite a few concerts and things like that. She also was a brilliant chef. She also worked as a chef in a few restaurants.
Mm. I think we often see artistic abilities run in families. My family
Mm.
tends to be very artistic. My grandmother
Ah, there you
was
go.
an artist. My mother actually did before when photographs were black and white still, and they
Mm.
had to be hand painted, hand colored.
Oh
My
yeah.
mother did that.
Oh really?
Yeah, my
I've
sister's
got.
paints. She's very artistic. My brother,
Oh,
he does sort of creative welding.
oh
He
wow.
did, commercial welding
Metalwork.
as his occupation, but he did a lot of just creative stuff with welding,
Oh,
which
yes.
I love. And yeah, and
Yeah.
of course I'm a writer, so
And
I
you're
can't
yeah.
paint,
Well,
but
there you go. But
yeah.
it does. I mean, my father, my father was born in Yorkshire in England, which is a mining part of England, and his father was a miner. He was also a very good engineer. But we've got photos of him doing oil painting, seeing him with, at the easel with a palette knife and painting. So he was artistic.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's something in the genes,
yeah. I
and
think it's definitely in the
the
genes.
upbringing, when I think
Yeah,
also just being exposed to art, like you're saying, your dad realized how it was important it was for children
yeah,
to see art, to see beauty, to,
yeah.
um,
Take them to museums. I mean, when we were little traveling with my parents. I mean, I'm really glad that they did it now, but at the time, going down through Spain, stopping at all these beautiful cities and it was cathedrals, museums, churches, all this. And there were times we would be going, Mom, Dad, when are we going to the beach?
not another cathedral.
Not another one.
I love it. I love it. I was
Oh, but they did
homeschooling
us a
my
favor.
children. When I was homeschooling, we would drag home art books from the library, the big ones, and
Yeah,
just,
big coffee table books.
peel through them so they
Mm.
could just see stuff. I think sometimes, well, I don't have a good visual imagination left to my own devices. I tend toward words. So I love it when I see a visual representation from someone else's imagination.
Ah,
I remember when I read The Lord of the Rings, I could not imagine the elven tree, like that tree that they all lived in. I just
yeah,
couldn't see it. I couldn't get it big enough. But then, so I loved when I went to the film and
yeah,
saw someone's visual
yeah,
imagination just brought that
Mm.
tree to life, and it was
Yeah.
awesome. I was like, oh, that's what the tree looks like. So, I mean, artists are just so important for our
Oh,
culture.
so I mean, because I've got the visual, I'd read books and I go, God, I really like that book, really interesting, really good story, imagination. And then they'd make a film and I'd come out and I'd go, oh God, it's not how I visualized it.
That was all bad. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Mm.
Yeah.
But one I saw a couple of years ago. Have you read Where the Crawdads Fly?
Ah, yes.
Oh, I love that book. And then when I went to the film with some girlfriends who were all English, we came out, we were like, oh my God, just loved it.
Yeah, it was
It was
beautiful.
it was so
Yeah.
true to the book.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I often think, a book, if it's got 600 pages, you've
Mm.
got to condense a lot of it because you're
Right.
going to do a
Yeah.
film that's 10 hours long.
Yeah.
And
And
then
those are
sometimes
wonderful.
just for me, I think, oh God, they should have put that bit in.
Yeah.
And then it's got left out because obviously,
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
yeah.
Snow Falling on Cedars was another film from a book, and it was beautiful. Just really, really beautiful. The title is beautiful, and I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but it's a
No.
wonderful story, and the movie really did justice to the book artistically and following the storyline.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's always good when you get out the cinema and you go, yeah,
Yay.
I'll go and see that again.
And of course, many of us now are watching The Chosen and seeing the biblical stories come to life, which has just been incredible. And has that
Yeah.
been popular in France?
I think I've recently heard about it because being in France, we don't get things coming out when they come out
Yeah, well, it's
America or
absolutely
England. They often
spectacular.
take a while to get to France.
It's spectacular. It's
Yeah. Oh, well,
really,
I'll check
really
that out. Is
spectacular. The
is that
visual
on
again,
is that
visual.
on Netflix?
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe it's on Netflix. The
Ah.
first 5 seasons are available now, and there's going to be
Oh, they're
seven
on.
altogether.
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, visually stunning. Yeah,
Oh wow! Well, I'm always into looking at visually stunning things,
yeah.
always. So we'll check that out. Thank you for that.
Well, this is
Yeah,
delightful. The Road to
yeah.
Bethlehem, I just want to put it up here, and
Mm.
it's available on Amazon. It's put out by Sophia Institute Press up in New Hampshire. I believe they're still in New Hampshire.
Yeah, they're in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we know you can get it there and you can get it on Amazon and perhaps in local bookstores, but we're not sure about that just yet.
Not quite. They should be informing me soon, but I'm sure you'll be able to buy them in bookshops
Yeah,
because
but
they're
I did
talking
find
about
it on
their
Amazon.
distributors. So if they've got a distributor, then it will be in shops.
Wonderful.
Great.
Is there anything else you'd like
Yeah.
to mention about yourself, your
Um,
dad, this book? I love the book, by the way. I just want to mention, I love the book. I love that it was told from, the animals on their way to
well, yeah.
Bethlehem. I love that they pick up some of these naughty critters that are getting into
Yes.
trouble and bring them to Jesus.
Yep. Well, we can all be naughty as
Right.
kids as we can adults.
And,
And I just love all the little detail, and I mean that the scene in the when Jesus is in the manger with on the right hand side above the donkey and the cow,
yes.
they're all the chickens in their coop. It's sort of like what's going on here?
Here.
And the angels, lots of angels. My other said before he loved angels. He always put as many
Love
angels
that final picture
and
too.
birds.
Hold that up.
Yeah, yeah. Back
It's,
with the dog.
it's just so cute.
Yeah, they got back okay.
It's really, really
Yeah.
fun. Oh, well, thank you
Yeah, it's
so
lovely
much.
to share.
I hope we have you back when the Francis book comes out.
Maybe I'll wait and see. One thing I would like to mention, just in case listeners or readers or is if you'd like to know more about my dad and his life. After he died, my brother and sister and I we put a website together.
Oh, wonderful.
We found loads of stuff in his studio because obviously when we were kids, we knew illustrated books, but we had all this loads of stuff in the cupboards. So we found all this stuff, and we thought, well, we're going to have to do a website in his honor. So if anybody's interested, it's really easy. It's obviously www.brianwildsmith.com, all attached.
Wonderful.
And that you can find out a lot more about lots of other sides to his life and about many of the other books that he did throughout his lifetime and what he did before, and it's pretty comprehensive.
That's delightful. I will check that out this afternoon.
Okay, that sounds lovely. Apart from that, well, I hope that anybody who buys the book is going to get a lot of pleasure out of it and show it to your children, read it to your children, and let them have a jolly good Christmas while they're doing it.
Quite lovely. It's a very
Um,
sweet, very special Christmas book. Love it.
yeah.
Nice
Have
gift
you,
book. Yeah.
yeah. If you have any other particular questions, I'm still open to.
No, I think yeah, I just loved everything about the book. So, when I first started to read it, oh, another Christmas book. I've seen a lot of them. This one was so different that I just immediately loved it. As soon as, the cat
Yeah.
and dog were introduced, I was like, oh my goodness, this is just too cute. I
Huge.
love
Yeah.
the angels having snowball fight. I mean, it's just really, really, really fun.
Yeah.
So,
But I think what makes it different is, I mean, because he was so good at what he did, and a lot of and it all goes back to him being a painter. Because when I look at quite a lot of books coming out nowadays, a lot of them are what I would call computer generated imagery, and
yeah.
I just find they lack soul. There's no soul to them.
Mm.
And there's nothing like, a person with a paintbrush or felt pens or crayons or whatever, technique or what medium they're using. There'll almost always be soul where you can feel, it's not computer generated.
Yeah, I think we were
And
just discussing
that
that in
really
a prayer
helps.
group last night, that we're seeing, artists are getting pushed out of the way with things being computer generated, and that we're just, the loss of that human touch, that human
Yeah,
soul.
which is
And
so
we have to be
important.
we have to be aware of it. We have to guard
Yeah,
against it because
because,
artists,
if everything's taken, I mean, that's what makes human beings unique is we've got these brains, we've got these technique, we've got technology, and when I say technology, I'm not just talking about, computers. You've got, art shops where you can go in and buy stuff and just, some people say to me, oh, I like drawing, but I'm no good at it. And I sort of say, well, it doesn't really matter. The main thing is if you're going to put pen to paper or crayon to paper or paint or whatever, is just enjoy what you're doing.
right, enjoy
And
it.
and if you get happiness out of that, then it doesn't really matter if it's not a Michelangelo or you know, some massively well-known artist's work or whatever. Just have fun in what you're doing.
That's why you're saying art in the schools is so important,
Mm,
and very often it is the first thing to go. Uh,
yeah.
so,
Mm,
yeah, I think, art for the sake of art is, we're in this materialistic, culture of production and
yeah.
just sort of getting back to the basics of, art just for the sake of art. I just had an interview yesterday regarding
Mm.
Flannery O'Connor, and of course she raised peacocks. And she
Oh,
said nothing drove her more crazy than for someone to say, well, what is the good of,
what?
what's the good of a peacock? What good use can you, what are they used for? And
Oh,
she just was like, they're not used for anything. They're just a work of art,
they are amazing.
they're just a bird of just pure beauty. You don't eat
Ah,
them, you don't rate, they're
no.
just to look at.
Well, you talking about peacocks. I have a grandson. I mean, he's 14 now, but he was about 7 or 8 at the time. And it was when I moved back to my parents because my father was ill and my mother couldn't really cope. So I went to live back in their house. And then obviously because my grandson was little, and my daughter's work, I often had to pick him up at school because the times didn't correlate and everything. And the entrance of this village where my parents lived, there were lots of pine trees. And on the other side of the road, there was lots of different houses, sort of like in an enclosure. And there was a pond in there, and they had peacocks.
No,
And one of the peacocks, because they mate for life, and they
they
said
do.
one of them had lost his wife as such, his female. And so the owners of the peacocks, they got in a new one who was an albino
Oh.
peacock. But this male peacock, oh no, he wouldn't have it to begin with. And so I go down to the entrance of the village because in the evening, when they were being fed, you can always tell because they make this quite extraordinary noises. We'd go and sit on the road, side of the road, and we'd watch this male peacock fly out of his enclosure and go and perch himself on the top of this pine tree. And I've got this brilliant photo of him with his, the beautiful long tail. It's end of the afternoon, so you can't really see that much of the colours. It's more like a silhouette. But what so surprised me was the speed that they can fly at. I always thought, they're really clumsy. No.
No, they can move.
And my grandson, he was just fascinated. And we just sit there for like half an hour just watching this peacock.
Beautiful.
So how anybody could say what you've just told me.
What good it is.
And people who say, oh, animals are stupid. God. I always say, no, it's humans who are stupid. They're not. They do things right.
Animals are amazing. Yeah.
What would we do without them?
Right. So unique, each one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been delightful. And
I've had a lovely time too. Thank you, Kiki.
Thank you so much. So why don't we just finish with another Hail Mary?
You can finish with whatever you'd like, Kiki.
All right. Yeah. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Francis of Assisi, pray for us. And I hope I see you again, and good luck.
You never know, Kiki. I'd love if with any of the other books, if the same thing sort of happens that they'd like me to do some interviews, fire ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's just really, really delightful that your dad's books are getting back out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm really. Well, that was another reason why my brother and sister and I sort of took over, and it sort of worked out with what we were doing in our lives. We had time to do it, and it's been very time consuming. But we just thought if we don't, do something about this, they're just going to disappear. And we really wanted, they're so beautiful, these books, that it's just, it's crazy not that the next generation of children won't be able to appreciate them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kiki. Have a lovely rest of the day, and until maybe St. Francis. Look out for it when it comes out, because we're obviously a fan of his, like my dad was.
Thank you.
Take care, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.